this meeting is being live streamed. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone from Denmark. I'm normally in Italy, but tonight we are live streaming from Denmark. And I thought it would be really light outside, but it's not. So I hope you can hear me. I hope you can see me. Linda, please let me know because my microphone is a little different. And what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about how to listen, which can be very difficult, and how to ask great questions. And it should actually be, the opposite way around, that it's easier to listen than ask questions. But I don't think that's the case, right? It's probably easier to ask questions or to just talk than to listen. I'll share my screen. I just said to Linda that it's very, when you've lived in another country that is not the country you were born in for 20 years, you kind of get to know the culture and the way people behave and think, what you can do, what you can't do. And it's very different from country to country. Right now it came to mind, like, I'm going to go buy a hat tomorrow. That way, wherever I lay my hat, that's my home. And I'll definitely listen to this amazing song after this live. So if any one of you have like these experiences that you lived in a country that is not your native country, let's talk about that one evening. Would love to do that. 5 human dystonic points. How to ask the right questions and listen, provide options and create a learning moment, attract clients and organize your world, or organize the world. Dystonia. In medicine, any alteration of the muscular or nervous tone, named for uncontrolled and sometimes painful muscle movements, spasms. It's usually a lifelong problem, but treatment can help relieve the pain. Now, why would Stefano Benemeglio, that created these 5 dystonic points or areas, zones, why would he call it like that? My theory, and if you have different theories, please let me know, is that sometimes human beings, we can't help talking. Even when we want to listen, be silent, and maybe not say something that we know we should not have said or talked about, it's very difficult for us not to. The 5 dystonic areas are the areas human beings normally occupy their being with and talk about. First biggie. And please look at these 5 areas in terms of how can I engage people? How can I get to know them? How can I get to know how they think, how they feel, to provide them with my services or to create value for them through the job that do we have Deborah with us? Hi, Deborah, welcome, and thank you for joining. First one, number 1, a biggie, family. I want you to just think for like a second, how much time your mind, your heart, your body, how much time is occupied with thinking about family, talking to family, worrying about family, having fun with family. Family is a great topic to talk with anybody about because it's something that touches us. It's something that moves a lot of emotions. I came home to Denmark yesterday, and if you can see, I'm a little, because unfortunately, I do not get to visit my mom and dad that are not here anymore. So it's very emotional. Just one little word, family, has like a whole world of emotions in it. Second point that you can talk and engage clients with, not family, so friends, colleagues, and acquaintances. This is the second area. Number 3, partners. Anybody that we have been in a relationship with. And it goes from like number 1 to 5. It's not the most difficult one, but from family to friends and then to partners, it's like 1, 2, 3. You have to go deeper, dig deeper and dig deeper. You can't just talk to people about partners right away. Number 4, self-realization, career, study, courses that people do, anything that has to do with how your client or how the person that you're talking to, how they see themselves, what is interesting for them, who do they want to become, what do they want to obtain, what is important in their life for their self-feeling, who am I and what do I want. And the last one is health, which has become a much bigger topic, of course, in these times because of COVID. And it's become easier to talk about it because now we have something in common all over the globe, the same thing. And we'll look into common grounds later. So to repeat, family, first area, friends, colleagues, acquaintances, partners, self-realization, career, and health. Health is wellness, general health. We can always talk about back pain or diets, and it's a pleasure for me that Linda is here with us today, and she's going to talk about that later. So let's visualize people in this little beautiful Italian city that are sitting in their homes. They might be watching TV or cooking, or what could they be saying? Anything. Ask me a question or anything they could say. Any one of you. Merck or Deborah or Linda. The Danish girl is online again. Merck, yeah. Oh, what's for supper?
What's for supper?
Exactly. And if one of you feels like, what's for supper? Very open question. And if we go back to the 5 areas, is it possible that I can talk about anything in these 5 areas following the question, what's for supper?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
What is a favorite family meal, or the last meal I had with one of my friends or partners, or you can talk about health, wellness.
Definitely. So you actually, Mark, you gave us a really great opening question, like, what should I make for supper tonight while you're standing in line or when you're at the amusement park or whatever, because you can talk about anything with the question, what's for supper? Totally love that. Why is it so important to ask questions and be able to listen? Let's say we're low of clients. Of course we're not, because we know body language, and some of you just told me that you have new clients, so that's good news. Going to see a client having a huge tiding festival in Denmark in these couple of weeks. So create value for the people around you, talk to them, and be aware and respect the rules. That's how we can use listening and asking questions. So let's see how it works. 3 different settings with 3 different sets of rules. And it's very important to engage people, to get to know them, to not step on their toes. It's very important that we respect these settings and rules. So 3 settings, 3 scenarios. One has a common ground. One scenario is so-so, and one does not have common ground. And according to the scenario, we behave in different ways. We all kind of know this unconsciously and we behave according to these rules, but if we make them really clear and visualize these rules before we step into a setting, there's a lot of opportunities for getting new clients in these settings. First one, common ground, where we have common ground with other people, it's easier to initiate a discussion or ask a question. And where could that be? Let's say people are sitting in a waiting room at the dentist. It's a lot easier to start talking because it's like everybody. I don't think I ever met, has any one of you like been happy going to the dentist? Probably not. Like you're not, there's not people like, yeah, I'm going to the dentist. I'm so happy about it. So when you sit in the waiting room at the dentist, you can be like, oh, I should have gone 6 months ago, but I didn't. And now it's like, oh, I just had to go because I have pain, or I bought my platinum MasterCard today because when I go to the dentist, normally it's not going to look good on my monthly bill. At the doctor's, at the hairdresser, there's a great place to talk to people, to get to know people. And it's not like, oh my God, I want to get clients, I have to talk to people. It's just building a relationship, getting to know people and having a real desire to figure out who's in front of you. At a school play, everybody comes there to see their kid, so we have common ground. In the kindergarten, accidents. And I wrote accidents. I saw this young, really handsome guy yesterday. He came out of a fitness center. I was still in Italy, and it made a huge impression on me because he was tall and blonde and handsome. And normally the Italian guys, they're not tall and blonde. They can't be handsome, of course, but they're not tall and blonde. And he was kind of hesitating. And I was like, what is something, did he have, like, it looked like he wasn't well. And I was like, I was about to go and see if there was something I could do. And then he took out, I don't know what it's called, like he had a stick because he was blind. And it made a huge impression on me because just seeing the whole scene, that my mind had already made so many conclusions about him. Just seeing him coming out of that fitness center, he was strong, he was macho, he was this and he was that, like, my brain immediately had a little formula, who he was, how he would talk. We talked a lot about voice Sunday, and we figure out that we already, when we see someone, we already kind of have an idea that's normally very good about how people are going to talk. And then he takes this thing out that just changes the whole setting, like the whole thing. And when it happens, it makes me realize how fast our brain is to make observations that might not be right. So we should ask more questions and try to be more, like, have a clean slate when we meet people, which is very difficult. And accidents, let's say there's someone from outer space comes down, and I'm going to take the screen share for this one. When we think about what we talk about and how we retell something, let's say someone from outer space comes down and they observe people. And there's this person that's like, oh, I saw an accident down at the roundabout today. It was terrible. There was blood and there was this and there was that. And then they have the ability to observe this person. And this person comes home and tells the same story. And this person from outer space is like, if it's that terrible, if it was really nasty, why would they talk about it again? Why would they tell the same thing? Because the day after, they tell the same thing at the job, to someone, and even years after, they tell this terrible thing. Why do we do that? Why do we talk about things that are not happy or good? Hmm.
I think
Go.
wait.
It's still a part of life. You know, it was something that left an impression in your psyche. And you may retell the scenario for different reasons. To teach somebody else something, you don't have to get burned by fire to know that it's hot, or whatever that expression is. So yeah, and also through the eyes that I see it is, you know, somebody can tell you that you're beautiful 100 times, but you pay attention to that person that says you're ugly once. It's the same type of concept. Anyway, that's that's my 2 cents.
No, that's true, Deborah. That's how we're wired, right? We remember bad stuff better.
Are we wired like that, or
Yeah.
are we cultured like that?
No, we're wired like that. Our brain remembers. It's because of the emotions that are attached to the event. We remember it in a different way, like the brain stores it in a different place, something like that. Sorry, it's not, I don't want to be that precise about it, but the brain stores it differently. Any other thoughts? But what I'm curious about is why we say it's like terrible, and then we tell it again instead of saying it was really interesting, or it made me think, or it got my heart pumping. There must be something there. We'll think more about it. So these are the common grounds where we can ask open questions to see if somebody needs our services. And why do they change? So they change because we come there for the same reasons. And we need to do what the other person needs to do. Like if I go to the hairdresser, I probably need to get my hair done. And the other person does that too. So we have something that we can talk about. That we have the same suffering, we have the same problem, or we have the same fun, same expensive, same peer group, and so on. These are all topics that you can go into with your super questions that we're going to look at in a little while. Settings that are so-so and can be very different, depends on size and depends on culture. So-so can be like amusement parks. If we're standing in line, going to the tower, you can talk to people. If we're at a bar, but it can also be weird, depends on how big it is, or even the country. Like in Italy, it would be more normal to talk to someone in a bar than in Denmark. Definitely, there's a difference in culture. Like it's not they mind their own business, it's just a different vibe. When it's smaller, you can talk to people at a bus stop, in a train station, supermarket, when you're in line for tickets, or workplace. And it's actually curious. I would love to do like a statistical research on the size of a building, like the workplace. How big does it have to be for people not to be able to talk to each other? Just going into the building. Like if you go into a building, there's like different offices, it's a small place, you can kind of talk to people. Whereas if you go into a huge corporate building, like I'm not going to talk to someone there, that would be kind of weird. Do you agree on this, or is it different in the States? I think I remember, Linda, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think I remember you said there's a difference from the north to the south. How?
Yeah, in the north, and particularly where I come from, Liverpool way, you can be crossing a road and someone can be crossing the road and you can actually have a conversation halfway across the road.
I love that. Okay.
Yeah. Always chat at the bus stop, in the shop. In fact, if you don't chat, there's something wrong with you. Else, you know, you could drop down dead and nobody would notice you. It's just fascinating.
It is. I think the right word, you use the right word, Lynn. It's fascinating. Like what created that? Who created that? Are there different types in the north and in the south? Is it like just habit? What is it, weather? You know, in Italy, the weather is warmer and people are out more. And it's like we're even less dressed that it gives the impression of like not being on the beach, but it's just the more you're covered up, the more close you could be. Fascinating. Because we have to be able to talk to everybody, because everybody is a potential client that we want to create value for. So this is is, I think, like looking at you and knowing you, you're kind of good. Like if you go to the dentist, doctor, would you feel okay studying, asking someone something? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Linda, I know you. What about you, Mug or Deborah? Yes, I think you're an extrovert, both of you, kind of.
Not so much,
Okay.
not so much. And it may be similar to what Linda was talking about in England. I'm in the northern part of the US, and we're much more reserved, quiet, mind our own business.
Okay. So it might be like a geographical thing we're figuring out. I'm thinking about Denmark from the north to the south. Probably the same thing. We'll make a geographical statistic. In the so-so can be more difficult. You have to practice more. Oh, you just got a great question before. What's for supper? Everybody's interested in food anyway, so we can use that one from now on. Where we really want to like, this is where we want to practice, and because this might be people that we don't know at all, that could be potential clients, so no coming around in the street, unless you're with Linda and you just have a chat in the middle of the street. I mean, in Italy, that's not kind of normal, and in Denmark, it's not for sure. Workplace, like if it's corporate, a big workspace, you wouldn't just go out to the next person and be like, which office are you going to? If it's a big bus stop, like an airport, but if you're sitting at the airport and you're waiting for the same airplane, that gives you like, oh, you're going to Denmark, are you going to Denmark? No, I'm going to Istanbul. I'm just passing through Denmark. It's like, okay, I have to follow a question. That is great. So nothing is given. Big train station. And let's think about in our minds, where do I put limitations on myself? Where do I feel it's allowed to talk to people, and why? And what questions are allowed for me? And what questions are not allowed? Where would I not talk to people, and why? And then really challenge yourself. Like, what is the challenge for you to speak to someone? If you know that your service can change someone's life, we talked about this last time, that if you're a tidying expert or a PO or a teacher, what you have can really change someone's life. So why would I not want to talk about it? It doesn't mean like you have to grab people, and it means that you have to engage them and get to know them and figure out if they do have a need for your service.
Can I just say something?
Yes, of course you can.
I did a long distance walk on Sunday. I'm walking the Thames path from the head of the river all the way to London. And I do about 10 miles every weekend. And
10 miles, how long is that in kilometers? That's a lot.
I do about 11, 12, 13 kilometers, something like that. So usually when you walk in the countryside and you meet people, you say hello. It's like a bit of the highway code. And
highway code. Highway code.
But I'm down south.
Oh, sorry, Lynn, this is like a great one. So when you are at the bus station or the train station or the bar, like, so what is the highway code in this part of town? It's a great question. It's like you're telling the other one, give me advice. Okay, go on. Sorry for interrupting.
No, it's so it's funny. So my instinct, and funnily my middle son, it's his instinct to always say hello to people. And it's really horrible when other people don't give you any sort of eye contact, because they're not allowing you to say hello. If they're quiet and they're shy, but they somehow give you a bit of eye contact, then they give you permission to say hello. So I'm doing the walk this weekend, and a load of people are not giving me eye contact, and they're not saying hello, and and I'm really annoyed. And I'm walking along, and I think, right, everybody I see for the next, to say hello to me. And anyway, this family came, you know, a father and son, wife and daughter, no eye contact at all. And I couldn't override my, you know, so I didn't say hello to them. But my instinct is to say hello to everybody, especially in those circumstances. But people, there has to be something on their part that allows me to do that.
That's true. So
I
how
put
can
it to,
no,
excuse-
go,
I'm sorry.
go.
I just wanted to put 2 cents in. So, you know, I really think it depends on where you come from and what your culture is. And at least it's been my experience. I live in New York City. If I was walking down the street and someone said hello to me out of the blue, I would have to look around, because folks just don't do that. It's just like everybody's in their own shell and everybody's going about their own business. On the flip side of that, I go to the Caribbean, Barbados, for example. I take an evening walk, and everyone you pass, good evening, you know, and it's such a pleasure. So in New York, if somebody says good evening to me or hello to me, I said, and where are you from? Because I know they're not a native New Yorker. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. So
Well,
I don't know. It might have to do with nature versus nurture or culture. I don't know.
but I guess also in New York, you could be like, hello, good day, good evening. I will be like really stressful because there's so many people. Hold on, you're muted now. Hold on.
I'm muted. Apologies.
Okay.
Yeah, but still, even you don't have to verbally say hello to everybody, but you can have just a nice, a pleasant, how can I say? You can give them eye contact, nod your head, you know,
Yes.
hold the door. You know what I mean? I just, everybody in New York is just so disengaged from one another.
Yeah.
Most folks.
I went to New York just after, and I know it's not a nice time, after 9/11.
Oh,
My husband and I went, and we spent, it was my birthday actually. We spent a week there. And I was staggered how unresponsive people were, just in every way, shape or form. You know, if you went into a restaurant, into a cafe, there was nothing. And I didn't know if it was linked with 9/11 or what, but there was nothing. And it was really shocking.
I thought
It's a great opportunity to be different though.
I thought you were going to say just the opposite. Because when a crisis strikes in New York, 9/11, for example, the hurricanes, if the elevators go, I live in a very tall high rise, 37 floors. If an electrical catastrophe, that's when folks come together and they bond. There has to be some type of chaos going on for most New Yorkers.
It's probably common ground, you know, the accident or the malfortune, it gives you common ground. And when there's so many people in the city, you don't have that common ground. But I think it's a great opportunity for people that live there to be different and create something different. And Linda, why don't you next weekend just say hello, you know, say hello, and just, you didn't say hello, say hello. Can you say, you can put on a t-shirt or something. You can like a little sign. I'm Linda, say hello.
No, but you see, the thing is, on one level, I'm not an exhibitionist like that. That's the weird thing. So in Oxford, every now and then, they'll have people will stand there with signs saying, do you want a hug? Okay, I haven't done it before.
They're not doing that anymore, I guess.
Well, no, okay.
Yeah.
But it's like, so, I mean, I used to work in Oxford, so I was there all the time. And, you know, you've got these like 3 people, you know, do you want a hug? And of course I feel for them because they're standing there and like, no bugger wants a hug. And so I went past and I said, I really like what you're doing. I said, but there's no way I'm having a hug.
I would have loved to have a hug.
Because although I want to say hello to people and I do want to communicate, I suppose there are limits.
You have
but
your
really
boundary.
think about it,
You
Linda.
have your
Really think about it,
boundaries.
though. Really think about why do I want to get, is it like a politeness thing? And what would be really interesting actually, Linda, for you would be to do the opposite. You try to look at people and don't say hello and see what your machine, what your emotional set. Try.
I lived in
Try. You tried. I'm gonna mute you. Tried.
No, I lived in Berlin for 3 years. Nobody, you can drop down dead. I'm serious. In Berlin, nobody will speak to you, pick you up off the floor.
Okay. We like the Germans, not that we don't like Berlin or
No. It was just no, Berliners are quite extraordinary, even for most Germans.
It is. Okay, so let's go into the different formulas that we can use. Listen, if we listen, and then we'll go into the questions after. The is great, because nowadays there's probably, because as you said, Lena, the lack of connection leaves people with a huge desire to talk, at least the majority of people, except of course there's people that do not like to talk a lot, but the majority of people we have, like there's a lack of connection and a lack of community, because we're not used to living two people with a kid. We were used to live, we used to be in bigger families, have people to talk to all the time. So just listen with a and be really interested is a great way. With your face, really look at the person, look that person in the eye, really listen, what are they saying? Emphasis on the words, accent, what is really important for them. Simple sounds. Oh, and I know it sounds really weird, but it totally works. Totally works to open up people and have them talk. The analogical types, if you know them, and if you don't, watch some of the previous videos. You can listen like this, or you can listen like this, and it makes a huge difference for the person that is next to you. Well, like this. And the signs of rejection and satisfaction, if you listen to people like this, it's going to be different than if you happen to do this. And if then you combine them all and be like, that's really effective. I'll be like, We have to go for casting, Linda, sooner or later. Okay, we'll try to get casted for a movie or something when we've got them all down. This is like some speakers or some teachers, they like to use the equal effect, like repeat one or more words the person you're listening to said. I'm like, yeah, it works, but please be careful, because it can be really dangerous. It's like if the other person figures out that's what you're doing, you're done. Like my mother used to be like, oh, your mother used to be, am I hearing that your mother used to be? Is like, yeah, what kind of course did you take lately? Like some kind of listening course? It has to be true. It has to be like, to really listen, there has to be a true desire to create value and get to know the other person, figure out what they need. And if you want to provide some kind of service, really know that you have what to do the job. And if you don't, back off, don't sell anything that is not, that the client doesn't need. Everybody needs timing, so it's okay. Interview questions. Hello. Hi, Caroline. Thank you for joining. These are great questions. What is the real challenge for you here? Some of these are in the book that I mentioned last week, The Coaching Habit, really great book. What are the options for you? What comes to mind for you? What would that look like for you? Anything they say, what's at stake for you? How do you want this to play out? And the ones of you that did the centers, the intellectual, the emotional, the moving, and the instinctive center, you already know kind of which questions would be better for the different types. And what else? What else is there? So these are some of the great interview questions. But before we go into these questions, we have to kind of like, if we're at the bus stop or at the dentist, we have to get the conversation started. So how do you do that? Game rules. Talk about yourself or others first. Sometimes it's easier to talk about others than about yourself if you're not used to it. Do not mention what they did not mention yet. So if we have the 5 areas, family, friends, colleagues, acquaintances, partners, self-realization, and health, don't mention one of the areas if they hadn't until the person you're talking to mentions it. That means that you can talk about it. Or if you really want to talk about something because you think it's important, talk about yourself first and just really observe, is it something that do I have enough connection? Is this person engaged enough with me? Can I ask these questions now? Ask follow-up questions and let the person take you there. If we let the other person lead and we give great questions, they are going to tell us what their need is. Ta-da-da. Let's practice. Ha ha. So let's say we're at the supermarket. What can we do? Ask for advice. Where can I find? There's someone there, and they have, let's say it's a woman. I'm just saying the first thing that comes to mind. 3 kids are kind of running around, and you can see it's like, okay, this could be someone that potentially could need my tidying services. Ask for advice. Where is? And she's going to snap at you like, can't you see that I'm busy with the 3 kids? Ask someone else. I said, okay. Or you can give advice if someone is looking for something. If you're standing in line complaining is always great because people love to complain. So you just have to say like a tiny little complaint and then people will go on and on and on and on. And I can see from your laughing faces that everybody is agreeing on this one probably. We like to complain a lot. Doesn't help anything, doesn't change anything, but human beings, we spend a lot of time complaining about things that we can't do anything about, which is also very interesting why we do that. Tell a joke. If you're good at telling jokes in line, notice something in the environment, something funny, something different, something weird, can be anything. Can be what someone is wearing, because human beings, we also like to talk about other human beings. It can be that normally the bread stand was over there and now it's not, or where the chewing gum is. It can be anything that you forgot something. Oh, shoots, I think I forgot my money. Oh no. Do you want some of mine? You can have some of my money. Don't worry about it. Or you can talk about money in a way that it's expensive, or prices have, prices in the supermarket have gone up, or they don't have this or that available for the same price. I think we're going to put money as number 6. I'm going to add a dystonic point. So number 6 is going to be complaining. That kind of connects all the areas. And number 7 is going to be money. Don't you think that's a good idea? All right. Who wants to try and practice? Let's set a setting. Mark or Caroline, Linda, Deborah. Let's figure out the setting. Where are we? Let's do something mundane. I just went to the Horning collection, which is a super beautiful car museum in Denmark that some of my friends just opened today. When you say like car museum, you're like, it's going to be dusty and stuff. Well, it's not. It's so pretty. So today I saw Lamborghinis and Porsches and I was like, oh my gosh, do you think they're going to notice if I grab one car and drive out of there? It's like getting like limousine, Porsche. And it wasn't the first car, but it was like a copy that is authorized by Benz of the first car. Crazy, right? Crazy. It was like kind of just looked like a real to me. So where are we? Let's have a setting set. Caroline, do you have any great ideas today? Or did something happen to you where you talked? When was the last time you talked to someone that you did not know?
I don't know.
Deborah, yeah, you have to unmute.
How about something simple that would work? Well, in my part of the world, it's summer. A park bench, a bench in the park,
Okay.
and you're sitting out. You're just sitting there, and you're just admiring the trees and the scenery.
I love that. I saw a guy like that today. He had his dog at his feet and he was reading a book. It looked really nice. I want to sit down, like, what are you reading? But I didn't.
As I'm trying to read, but you're talking to me.
Yeah. Well, that's because I'm so lonely. I just came up here from Italy and I feel really lonely because I miss my family members in Italy.
Are you role playing with me?
Yeah. Do you see how that changes? Like if you make people feel guilty, we can call that number 7. Make people feel guilty. Oh, it works all the time. And females were the experts, right? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But it does work. No. Don't you worry. Just go out. Don't you worry about that. I'll take care of myself. Just making sounds, just making sounds, women can make men feel guilty. And probably the other way around also. Okay, so there's a bench and Deborah is sitting on the bench and she's reading. Is that okay?
Sure.
And who's sitting down next to Deborah? Linda, you can warm up for your keto, the keto alternative. So Linda started talking about dieting because I often mention that I'm addicted to chocolate. And I was like, oh, wow, I want to hear more about that. So she's going to come on in a couple of minutes and tell me how I'm going to be fit. And everybody laughed after that. I'm going to do like a before and after photo. Okay, so we're sitting on the bench, Deborah, or do you want to try, Mark? Anybody, or you can just butt in whenever you want.
Well, to be very honest, if I saw Deborah sitting on a park bench reading a book, I would not disturb her.
Well, I don't want your honesty, Linda. I want your client seeking, Linda. Do not want honesty. There's no such thing as honesty anyway. We know that.
Okay, so I sit down next to it and I say, whoa, looks like a good book.
Yes, it is. And I go back to reading my book.
Okay, so Linda, first thing.
What's an open question?
Yeah, good. That was the next thing I was going to say. So we sit down and we kind of try to feel the energy that the other person, what kind of energy are they in? Is it really interesting book? How do they feel? What are they thinking? Where are they? And maybe you can just do like a, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful place. I bet you sought it out, especially for reading your book or something like that. I don't know. Mark, do you want to try?
Oh, can I just ask a question, please? What is the objective of this exercise?
Talking to you about your services, whatever the person.
So I am going to, or the person, Linda, will interrupt me so she can talk to me about her business.
Yes, exactly.
That is her objective.
I'll never interrupt you though, unless she knows that you're a shield, and she will.
Unless she knows that I'm a shield.
Uh-huh. Okay. Somebody.
Are we moving on to a new scenario, or are we asking Deb, are we all sitting down on the park bench with Deb?
We're all sitting down on the park bench. I actually really like the image of the 5 of us sitting down on a park bench. That would be lovely. And no hugs, Linda, okay, I promise. Yes, we're still, so Deborah is sitting there. She's just reading the book.
Oh, I'd come over and sit down and probably say, oh, it feels good to sit down. My feet are killing me. Isn't this a big park? Do you walk in this park?
So,
So Deborah, you would have to answer like
no,
if
I wouldn't have to answer. I think she's crazy. She's talking to herself. I wouldn't have, unless you want me to answer, because people walk all over the place talking to themselves. People, no, honestly, people are on their cell phones.
Okay.
talking.
So we failed big time, all of us, asking Deborah questions. So we have to work harder. What could
So
be?
you want to change the scenario?
No. It's great. We have to. So this is like this is a non-common ground thing. So we have to. It's really challenging, but we are up for a challenge. So we're sitting on the bench.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Deborah.
Excuse me, ma'am. I was trying to find the carousel. Do you know where the carousel is at?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
I love it much. You got 100 out of 100. Ask advice because people love to give advice. Very nice question. And next up, so she doesn't know. Now you can use the one from before. I should be like, oh, you know what? My feet are killing me. I'm going to sit down.
Yep, my feet are killing me. I'm going to sit down.
Do you know what Deborah does for a job, for a living? Huh? You don't, right?
No.
She's a teacher's nurse. I'm going to give you that information. So it's like, so next thing is like my doctor gave me this remedy for my feet and it does not work at all. Okay, but great one. Okay, great one. Ask for advice. Ask a question that does tell Deborah that you're not crazy. Okay, well, it's important. It's not easy. We saw it. It's not easy. So ask where the carousels are or the ice cream shop or where you can get a coffee that you forgot your water at home. So you don't have any water. So you need to go to the coffee shop or whatever makes you look normal. Apparently.
I suppose what I might also do is, if I thought she was hard to get at, I could say, you might pick up on the book, say, I just read that book with my book group. It's an amazing book. You know what I mean? Something like that.
Definitely.
Because
Definitely.
She might be tempted, if she thinks, as you say, commonality, you're both readers and
which one does always work? You can always use it in a situation. You trip over your own feet. Unless you're in Berlin and they're just gonna let don't do it in Berlin. Okay, different scenario. Let's say we're at the doctor's. Mark is at the doctor's and Caroline just walked in. And she had a client cancel a whole week of tidying session 10 days from now. So she's like, I got to fit another client in there because. And she's like, you're with the radar. I'm sorry, I got the Italian expression, but radar. It's like, who's my client? So you sit down.
I'm sitting down, yes.
Yeah. But you have to calculate that you have, one seat in between because now you can't sit next to each other.
Yeah. How full is this waiting room? We're going to be here for hours. How long have you been waiting?
Oh, I've been here about 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. That's not too long. I've got other things I need to do today, so I'm hoping it won't take too long.
What all do you have on your plate?
Okay, let's start over again. Well, you're talking, okay? You're talking, so that's good.
I've just got this urge to say, you here for your smear test, but I can't do that, can
I? Okay, we're starting over again. So much is sitting there. Would you mind showing us your emotional state of mind? Really? Okay, super.
Oh, is it still me? Sorry.
Look at us with that easy.
Oh. Are you okay? You seem a little bit stressed. Have you been having to wait a long time?
Too many questions, Caroline. Okay, one rule. Are you okay? If you ask, are you okay? Wait. One question and wait. Are you okay? Have you been waiting for a long time? Have you? It's like
Stalker.
Sorry, I'm on the phone.
Okay. Are you okay? She's not.
What was the question?
Are you okay?
Not really.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Can I get you a glass of water?
You're at the doctor's, Caroline. You're sitting in the waiting room with can you get a glass of water at your doctor's
Yes.
waiting room? Oh,
Yes.
cool.
Always.
Wow.
No, thank you.
Okay.
No, thank you. I'm here to get my biopsy results.
That's stressful.
Caroline, okay, open questions, no conclusions.
Oh, okay.
So sorry, we talk about,
Yeah.
just listen
Mm-hmm.
and repeat. And in this case, it would be like, wow,
Yeah.
biopsy results.
Mm.
Yeah, cancer runs in my family.
I'm sorry to hear that. Have you been waiting long for the results?
Oh, it feels like forever, but it's only been a week.
Well, a week with something like that is a long time anyway.
Caroline, try not to make any, if you can, no conclusions, no conclusions. It's like you just said, a week is a long time. No conclusion at time. Say something general about time.
Okay.
Or open question.
Okay.
So
I will find that hard because I tend to empathize with people.
I know. So Mug, you said you had been waiting for a week.
Yep, I've been waiting for a week. It seems like a lot longer, but it's just been a week.
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't been able to get anything done. I've just been paralyzed with fear. So everything's just piling up at work and at home, and it just adds to the stress.
Oh, are you feeling rather overwhelmed?
Yes, very much so.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
I think if someone had just told me that, I wouldn't push them to work for them, quite frankly. I would know I could help them, but if someone had just told me that information, I would think, okay, I need to respect their privacy at this point and give them some space.
But yeah, it's not, but that's, Karen, in the beginning, we talked about, widening the horizon, being there for someone and getting to know someone. It doesn't, if you talk to someone in the doctor's room, especially if she tells you something like that, it doesn't, we're not trying to sell a KonMari festival.
No, I realize that, but I thought the point of the thing was to tell her what we do for work. So I don't think I would.
You can. So you talk about yourself or you talk about other people. So if you can see one way could be, I'm actually
I just said that things were piling up at work and at home.
So you can you either have a colleague, Caroline, because we have a lot of colleagues that did do work like that, people, and be like, you know what, I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm actually a KonMari consultant. I'm a tithing expert. And if there's ever something I can help with, and I did this, or talk about someone else, or talk about you.
Yeah.
If you had someone in the family that had problems that you help, it's to connect. And if she, just as Mark said, if she says things are piling up, she might really want your help.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
still waiting for the results of the biopsy. We don't know yet if it's, if it's
Yeah.
one or the other.
Yeah.
But it's not easy. Asking open questions and not making conclusions. You went there and I said, I saw a guy and I just, my brain just went, made a whole lot of assumptions about him that were not true.
Mm.
And it's interesting.
Mm.
And focus on the person, focusing on the other person and not, being, what am I saying? Or what would they think? Just be there for them is really difficult.
Yeah.
So we need to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this week, what do you say if we practice open questions and remind ourselves that we do it like with friends, families, and colleagues, but maybe in this case we can do it with not family members first.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can try with family. It's almost it's a lot more difficult with these kinds of situations, at least. But just whenever we're out, be like, what could I, instead of thinking about what I have to do tonight, or at work he didn't do this or she didn't do this, or tomorrow I'm going to tell my boss this, or why didn't they have this at the supermarket? Our brain just goes on and on and on. Where am I? What situation am I in? Can I connect with somebody? Do I want to? Do I not want to? Just check us out. And do you see, Karen, how your empathy, because it's you really feel sorry.
Mm.
But that could be more about you or about me. If I feel bad for them, it's tricky.
Mm.
It's difficult. If somebody comes up to you and I have this or that, it's difficult to, and it's not something we talk about. And with that, Linda.
Ooh.
Oh, thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you.
That's okay.
Yes, and you should be able to share your slides. And hi, Licia, thank you for joining.
Right. Can you
Hi.
my screen? Lykke?
You should be able to share your screen, yes.
Because my screen kept coming up behind yours, so I think it was already there.
No, I don't. I'm not sharing. So you have to share your screen now, I think.
Well, I think I'm going to have to call my daughter.
That's no problem. Just ask her an open question, like, do you have anything? What are you doing right now? It's just like,
Keep chatting, everybody.
Get over here now. We need our assistant. And I think it's actually really important, and I haven't thought about this before, but maybe have a couple of, time. Sometimes an hour can seem like endless minutes, or kind of not standard phrases, but something that we can say when we don't know what to say.
Like, how did you meet one another? Or how did you choose this doctor? Have you been coming here long?
Have you been coming here long? Is a little, yeah, it's just like
Forever.
Yeah. Did you just put up a picture of me, Linda? I saw myself there.
Okay, we all good?
I can see. Can everybody? Yes.
Everybody good. Okay, brilliant. So
We
I,
are still live streaming, Linda. You know what I mean by this.
okay. Lovely to meet you all. I'm Linda. Now I'm going to talk to you about the keto alternative. I am not a doctor and I am not offering medical advice. This is my own personal experience, and so just take that into account. If anybody is diabetic or is taking blood pressure medications, you should never contemplate doing a keto diet without proper medical support and supervision. Okay, so is everyone happy with that? Yeah, I have to be really careful because Deborah's a nurse. I have to make sure I don't. Please give me, if you want to say anything, Deborah, feel free, yeah?
And Mark is a lawyer, so we're good hands. So Mark just raised, like, if Mark raises a hand, it's like, okay.
Okay,
It's cool, it's cool. Thank you. I'm really happy that you take the time to be here. I really am.
Right, so the first slide is an oil tanker. Now, it's a massive, great thing. I'm sure we've all seen one. You can see that the main tank, and it's full of, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of liters of petrol. Now, the actual tank, the petrol tank for the tanker itself is quite tiny. So you can imagine this crossing the country and running out of petrol, literally. And it's quite ironic because this tanker is swimming, it's full of petrol, but the petrol tank that drives the vehicle is only tiny. Yeah. And the driver is in this weird situation whereby he can't actually get petrol from the tanker and put it into his little petrol tank. Yeah. And that's what the human body is like. Most of us are walking around with massive fat reserves and we can't access them. Yeah. Would you agree? Okay. Now, I don't know about you, but I grew up in the 60s, 70s with the food pyramid. This came out of America. This were the American eating guidelines, and they permeated most of Europe. I don't think they ever got, if I'm honest, to Italy and France, but definitely got to England. And they are pretty much made up of low fat, high complex carbohydrates, loads of fruit and vegetables, a little bit of meat and dairy, and very small amounts of fat, oil, and sweets. And it's really a low fat, high carbohydrate diet, which I think most of us are familiar with. So what were the consequences of this diet? Well, the Americans, and I'm afraid I only have American data, I hope this is acceptable. Americans took the guidelines and they ran with them. And you can see from this diagram, if you look at the top, you've got fresh vegetables. Americans in the last 30, 40 years are eating 20% more fresh vegetables, 35% more fresh fruit, 28% more grains. And if you look at it down, and then you can see they're actually eating less whole milk. So we're assuming that they're eating skim milk, less butter, less animal fat, less eggs. Yeah, so they're following the dietary guidelines. So what do you think the consequences have been for America? And England follows on very closely with America. Well, this is America in 1985. And you can see that there was over 10% obesity in various states. Now, the white states, there was no data for, okay? This is 1985. Now, I could have put half a dozen slides in, but time is a restriction. So we're going to zoom forward to 2014. So that's the American dietary guidelines for you. Okay, it's turned a nation. You now have in at least 3 American states obesity over 35%. And not one American state has less than 10% obesity. And this is closely followed in the United Kingdom. Now, I don't know about you, but I've spent most of my life dieting. I've always been a Weight Watcher. I've never been into fad diets. The idea of dropping out different food groups, combining this and that, you know, I just thought, no, I just have to eat a healthy diet. I have to restrict what I eat sensibly, a little bit of everything, follow the dietary guidelines, and I would be healthy. Yeah, well, I found out 3 years ago, or should I say, I realized 3 years ago, what scientists have known for over 100 years, diets do not work. In the 1930s and 40s, there were a series of trials. This is the Minnesota starvation trials. And they put a group of college graduates on a lower calorie diet. Now, you might think that they were eating next to nothing, but actually they only dropped their intake by a few hundred calories. And what happened to them? Well, their metabolic rate declined by 40%. Now, if you reduce the amount of calories you're eating or the amount of fuel that you're putting in your body is not stupid. It's not going to keep burning calories that it knows it's not going to get. So the body adapts and it lowers its metabolic rate. So you might feel tired, you might feel a little bit cold. And if you persist in lowering the amount of calories you eat, your body will permanently lower its metabolic rate. Now, I used permanently advisedly because there are ways to get your metabolic rate back up, but most of us don't employ them. Most of us just go on a diet and we have to suffer the consequences. So what are the consequences? Well, you eat less calories, you lose weight, depending on how you've lost weight, and most people are losing weight on the low fat, right? Their metabolism will go down. You actually will feel very hungry because your body wants you to eat, okay? And then once you stop dieting and you start eating again, even if you eat a relatively normal amount, it is almost inevitable that you will put on weight because your metabolism has actually dropped. And even if you were to eat slightly less than you were eating before you went on a diet, or the same amount, you will actually put on weight and you'll put on more weight because your body now needs even less energy to achieve its basic metabolism. And this is the yo-yo diet, which we all, or many of us know about. And I've spent my whole life losing weight, keeping it off for a period of time, and then putting it back on again. And I think I'm a pretty healthy person. I cook all my own food. I don't use any processed food, but I've never managed to keep the weight off, ever. So what happened about 3 years ago, I reached rock bottom health-wise. I had an undiagnosed problem with my back. I was in pain most of the time. I was actually quite afraid that I was going to end up disabled. I was on steroids. I'd put on a terrific amount of weight, 30 plus kilos. I had a raft of other health problems, childhood, asthma, eczema, thyroid problems, underactive thyroid. And I gave Weight Watchers, shall we say, one last try. I lost a stone and then something came up with my mum and I wasn't able to follow the diet for about 3 weeks. I didn't actually eat a lot because my mum's cooker didn't work, so it was a nightmare, but I didn't eat a great deal. Anyway, I came back and after 3 weeks, I'd put on 2 pounds and something in my brain went I just thought, no, I'm just not doing this again. I know what's going to happen. I will spend the next 9 to 12 months losing weight because I'm actually very good at dieting. And then gradually it will all come back on again. I just knew it was going to happen. So I just decided there and then I was not going to ever diet again. I went to see my doctor about my back, and he promised me an appointment with a specialist. Remember, this is England, the NHS, but I would have to wait 7 months. So I said, well, have you got anything in the meantime, you know, to help me? And he gave me a leaflet about how to handle pain and arthritis. So I took it home, and there was one thing in the leaflet that triggered my attention. And it was a sentence. It said, seed oils are inflammatory. Now, all of my conditions are autoimmune, and they are caused by inflammation. Yeah. So there was this sentence saying that seed oils were inflammatory. Now, I don't know about you, but I used to cook with corn oil. I had seed oil margarine rather than butter. And I was really thrown by this statement. You know, it sort of turned everything I'd ever thought on its head. So I started to do research. I went online and I read loads of books. And these are 3 of my favorites. So Nina Teichl, she's an American journalist, science journalist, and she spent 10 years researching fat. And what she has said is that the idea of a low-fat diet was never, ever backed up by solid scientific evidence. And in the period since a low-fat diet was introduced, they have never been able to come up with the proof that it's effective. Gary Taubes, he was a scientist. He wrote a lot of books about nuclear energy, that sort of thing. And he was fishing around. He just finished his last book, and he wanted something to write about with a bit of a scientific bent. And somebody said, well, if you want something controversial, write about nutrition. And he spent the next 5 years researching a book. And this book is outstanding. It's a tome like that. All of these writers are available online, so you can catch them. And then Jason Fung, he's one of my favorites. He's a nephrologist from Canada. And he was dealing with large numbers of people who pretty much at the end of their life, their kidneys had gone. And he was getting very depressed because basically he couldn't really do anything for people. And most of them, if not all of them, had diabetes. So he started to sort of go back and think, well, was there any point where I could have helped these people? And so what he came up with was the low carb diet. So encouraging people to stay away from sugar and carbohydrates. But when you're dealing with a little lady, originally from China, whose grasp of English is not that great, Jason Fung is actually Chinese himself. This is a story he tells. You know, he says, it's actually quite hard to tell this little Chinese lady not to eat rice. He said, but if I told her to fast, then she understood that, because most cultures have fasting in their cultures. So his way of handling this obesity problem is to encourage people to fast. In my research, I also came across an amazing website, and it's called dietdoctor.com. And I'm not advertising here, but I absolutely love them. And you should like them, Lykke, because they're Danish. Yeah, this chappie is Danish. And it's a wonderful source of really high quality information about the ketogenic diet, a low carb lifestyle, and fasting. So there I am, you know, suddenly my perception of what is a healthy lifestyle has been turned on its head. Okay. So what do I mean by that? This is just a quick recap. There are 3 macronutrients. Now there are loads of micronutrients, you know, vitamins and minerals, but only 3 macros. So they are carbohydrate, protein, and fat. Now, fats are essential fatty acids. If we don't have them, we will die. Protein is essential. Amino acids, they're the building blocks of life. If we don't have them, we will die. There are no essential carbs. That means if you don't have carbohydrate, you will not die. You might be a bit bored and unhappy, but you will not die. And that's because we can make glucose. It's called gluconeogenesis. So we can actually make it. And if we can make it, then it's non-essential. Okay. So we use protein, they're the building blocks of life, and they repair our body. But carbs and fat we use as fuel. Now, since the introduction of the American Dietary Guidelines, this is what most people's diet looks like. Now, protein, there's something called protein leverage. All animals will eat a specific amount of protein, depending on what they are. So humans will eat between 13 and 18% protein. Rats eat 34%. Okay, so let's say you have a diet which is really low in protein. You will have to eat a lot more to eat sufficient protein. And if you have a diet that's really high in protein, then you might actually find that you take on less food than you need because your protein needs are getting met, okay, a lot earlier. So the American Dietary Guidelines, they introduced a diet where unwittingly what they did was they encouraged us to slightly reduce the amount of protein that we ate. So most people are eating, despite what people might think, we're not actually eating enough protein. Okay. And when it comes to fat and carbs, if you drop the amount of fat you eat, then you will automatically up the amount of carbs you eat and vice versa. So the American Dietary Guidelines encouraged us all to eat less fat. So inevitably, we had to eat more carbohydrate because we can't eat more protein. Protein is pretty much a fixed amount. Yeah. Now, when you eat protein and fat, your body has a hormonal response to it. Okay. Now, we know they're both essential. So I'm going to look at the hormonal response that we get when we eat carbohydrates. Okay. So carbohydrate is also glucose. That's what it is. Whether you're eating rice, a baked potato, honey, it's still glucose. And when it hits your body literally lights start flashing because you've only got 4 grams of glucose in your blood. That's less than a teaspoon. Now you've just had a bowl of basmati rice, which is 10 teaspoons of sugar. Okay. So your body doesn't want to go into hypoglycemia. So your body responds to that glucose and it produces insulin. And it's the job of insulin to direct the glucose into your cells for energy. So kids, they'll have a bit of a sugar feast and they're all, they get a sugar high because, they're literally their cells are popping with sugar. Any surplus will go to the liver where it's turned into glycogen and it will be stored in the liver and in the muscles. So marathon runners, they will often have pasta or rice or something the night before a race so they can fill their glycogen stores. Yeah. Any other surplus carbs will be turned into fat and they will go into your fat cells. Okay. So once the insulin has managed to divert all the sugar, your insulin will drop back down again. Okay. Now we'll say that it'll drop back down to 0. And then your fat cells will literally open. And if your body needs it, it can use the fat. But as long as there's insulin, your body can't access those fat cells. Okay? So at night, why don't you wake up in the middle of the night, starving, hungry? you know, especially when you sleep maybe for 12, 14 hours, it's because your insulin drops down and your body will naturally draw on your fat cells. Yeah, draw on your body fat. Now, so the trick is that insulin makes you fat. Yeah, because as long as you've got insulin, you are storing fat. So this is a little girl who was a type 1 diabetic, and that means she cannot make insulin. Okay, so there she is on the left. She's completely emaciated. She will have a problem getting energy into her cells. And at one time, she would have died quite young. But since they managed to make insulin, she can live. So insulin is good. We need insulin. But what we don't need is we don't need too much insulin, and we don't need insulin flooding our bodies all the time, because that leads to resistance. And after 2 or 3 decades, it will lead to diabetes. So in the 50s, 60s, even the 70s, I would say, most of us would have had 3 meals a day, no snacks. And that was good, because that allowed our body, after breakfast, we'd have a little spike in our insulin, and then it would most probably have time to come back down again before lunch. After lunch, a bit of a spike, and then it would drop down again before dinner. And then after dinner, there would have been a nice long gap before breakfast the next day, and that would have given our insulin plenty of time to come down. And obviously, once our insulin comes down, then we can use our fat stores. There was a recent survey, and they reckon that people are eating up to 11 times a day now. So they are literally constantly eating. And if you throw in a coffee, like a latte, milk is full of lactose. It's really high sugar, high carb. So if you throw in a few lattes during the day, as well as all your meals and your snacks, most of us are swimming in insulin. So people normally say, you're obese because you're greedy and you're lazy. Scientists have known for 100+ years that that is not the truth. It is not a personal choice to overeat and be fat. What I would suggest, and where the evidence is leading, is that obesity is a hormonal problem. And this is something that Gary Taubes goes into in great detail in his book, because loads of research was being done in Germany and Austria before the Second World War, and most of that research was lost. So if you have high levels of insulin, that will lead to obesity. And because you cannot access your fat stores, you will be constantly hungry and you will eat more. So obesity is, for not everybody, there's always variations, but it is a hormonal, most probably a hormonal problem. So 3 years ago, I gave up dieting. I said, I'm never going to diet again. I'd discovered this whole other world of eating, and I decided to do a low carb, high fat diet. And this is the sort of thing that I eat. So I eat all sorts of animal products, dairy. I eat fat. Olive oil is one of those oils that does not seem to be a problem, unlike corn oil and seed oils. I eat a lot of butter, cheese, and loads of green leafy vegetables and low starchy vegetables. So cauliflower, broccoli, asparagus, all that sort of thing. Avocados, olives. I eat things like tomatoes, but in moderation. At one time, I would have popped them like sweets. This is a breakfast for me. I don't have it every day, but if I want to, I might have it for breakfast or lunch. I like to make cauliflower pizzas. And who doesn't like chocolate cake? The only thing is I would tend to eat 85% chocolate, which is a low carb. So what have been the results for me? Well, for me personally, my asthma has gone. I have not used my inhaler in nearly 3 years. My eczema has gone. I get a tiny little flare up sometime on my right hand, but I think it's from washing the dishes. But other than that, my eczema is gone. My, acid reflux. I was popping Rennies for years, completely disappeared. My problem with my back is actually being treated with biologics, which is an anti-inflammatory medication. But according to my doctors, I'm one of the few people on a trial that took place at the JR who has never had a flare-up since I started the medication over 2 years ago. I still take thyroid medication. To be honest, I wouldn't think of stopping it to see whether I needed it or not, but I still take my thyroid medication. My mood, I had low-level anxiety most of my life, and that's disappeared. And I'm not angry. I'm not as angry as I was. Now, this could be coincidence. It could be my age. I'm in my mid-50s. But I personally would put it down to my diet. My husband has also joined me on the diet, and I asked him the other night what he thought about it. And he gave me a whole list of positives. So this is sort of some of the latest evidence for a low-carb, high-fat diet. We've known for over 100 years that it's effective with epilepsy, particularly with children. There's something about the low-carb diet. Actually, the one thing I didn't explain is when you break down fat in the body, you produce ketones, and ketones are an alternative form of energy. When you first start to break down fat, you might have some side effects. So you might get a bit itchy because your body is giving off ketones. Your breath might be a little bit off because of ketones, and you will wee them out as well. Ketones are very wasteful because they can't be stored. Fat can't be stored. There is no insulin response to fat. If you ever read Oliver Twist, do we know Oliver Twist from Dickens? Okay, so little Oliver Twist, he's being fed on gruel in the orphanage, and all the kids are really subdued. And then he goes to work for the coffin maker, and he goes a bit crazy. Well, basically he fights back, and the bagel goes there, and he says, "What have you been doing? You've been feeding him meat?" And you know, that this perception that meat, animal products, your body does respond differently to them than your body responds to grains. Yeah. So I think I've gone on long enough. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you've got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I couldn't say too much about too many things because it is a really complicated subject. But anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone's got any.
Thank you so much, Linda. The only question I had in the beginning was when they made that diet, because I remember very well the pyramid from even from my classroom. I think it was on the wall in my classroom, I'm pretty sure. What triggered that? What happened? Why did it become like, if you know? And I just want to thank you for your presentation. When you started talking about it the other day, I was like, I want to know more. I am one of those that have been dying, and I swore, I think maybe 8, 9 years ago, I was never going to do it again. Because one of my favorite speakers, Eric M.Mus, was like, have you noticed the 3 first letters of diet is die? So stop doing that. And ever since he said that, I was like, there's something there. But I was wondering why did it become so famous? Why was it like, because when you're told something as a kid and people, grown-ups tell you and the doctor tells you, it's like, okay, yeah, of course it's like that. You don't question it when you're 10 or 11. Thank you.
Okay, so what happened was it was a combination of things. So gradually from the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was a growth in heart attacks. And it was actually very, very small. And then the American president had a heart attack. And they were desperately looking around thinking, what's caused, this heart attack? And a chap called Ancel Keys came up with, he was the guy who ran the Minnesota starvation trials. He came up with the idea that it was fat that had caused it, particularly saturated fat. And he set up a hypothesis. And then he set out to prove his hypothesis. He's actually been almost completely discredited. And he himself admitted towards the end of his life that, particularly talking about saturated fat, that he'd been wrong. But what happened was, if you ever read anything about science, it's amazing. It's not a very nice world. It's quite an aggressive world of opinions, because in England, we had a chap called, was it Lutkin or Rudkin? Sorry, I apologize. Lutkin or Rudkin. And he reckoned that the problem was sugar. So you had Ancel Keys in America saying the problem is fat. And in England, you had this Lutkin saying it was sugar. And the two of them were, at each other's throats. And I hate to say it, but I think it was he who shouts loudest actually won. Now in America, they were worried. The president had had a heart attack. Heart attacks were going up, and they wanted a solution. And they wanted a quick solution. So they formed a committee. And without ever doing any trials or getting any evidence, they decided that they called it the diet heart hypothesis was valid, but there was no evidence to support it. And there were scientists at the time saying, listen, you can't do this. You cannot put the whole country on a low-fat diet. It's ludicrous, but they did. They put the whole country on a low-fat diet. So then there were a series of trials to measure the effects. And if you read Gary Taubes, and I'll be honest with you, I am not a conspiracy person. I'm just not. I pretty much agree with most things that governments do. I don't have a problem. But it was quite shocking because most of the trial data was just never published because it didn't actually fit the hypothesis. I mean, it was a clever idea. You have the idea of a pipe and you put hot fat down it and cold water. And what do you get? It clogs, doesn't it? So that must be how our arteries work. It was a great theory, but it's never been proved. And there's a woman in England, Zoe Harcombe. She did her master's thesis. She's a mathematician. She took all the data to support the diet heart hypothesis. And she just said that it's not there. It's simply not there. And even she was shocked because she didn't actually expect it to come out negative. We all assume that there's a scientific basis, and there isn't. They always used to say that France was an exception because in France they have a high fat, a high saturated fat diet, and they have far less obesity and far less heart disease. So it was like an outlier. That was how it was perceived. But actually, yeah. So there you go. Long answer. Sorry. Short question, long answer.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Linda.
But the other thing I wanted to say was I didn't really mention it. The first low carb, high fat meal I ever had was a Cobb salad. So it was like a big green, loads of lettuce, a little bit of tomato and cucumber and onion. Sorry, Caroline, chicken, ham, and blue cheese, olives, and a really rich, creamy ranch dressing, which is really unusual in the UK. But anyway, I had this. And I think I had a double portion because I got the instructions wrong. And I didn't eat for 22 hours. I was so satiated. And now I eat maybe once a day, twice a day. I mean, sometimes I eat 3 times a day, but very rarely. I'm never hungry. Food I'm 57. Food no longer governs my life in any way, shape, or form. I can go days and days without eating. No problem.
Food no longer governs my life in no form of shape.
No.
I want to be able to say that in a couple of months, so maybe a year, but I would love to be able to say that.
No, but seriously.
Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Loved it. Hope it was helpful for everybody else too that was watching. I'm going to take us off the live and just say good